We welcome Sofiane here. He's the CEO and founder of New Life AI. I already made the quick introduction earlier today. Sofiane, just want to give the space for you to speak. We have half an hour before we move on to the next session. Very, very excited to learn how you actually disrupt the traditional creatives industry. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, so to tell you a bit of background around New Life, so we have been in the creative space since 2017. The core mission of New Life is to serve the creators who are a little bit too ahead of the curve because social networks are driven by traction, where if you want to evaluate the creative value of a creator, you will look at things like followers and likes. And sometimes creators are more ahead of the curve, they are pioneers, and they don't have such traction. And it's a bit a deformation that social networks have produced, which is that the whole world is a hype economy where you are acknowledged, or and it's kind of the same with crypto, right? You see a lot of crypto assets that hype without really delivering value. You see a lot of undervalued assets in the space, and so the same applies to creators. And so our core mission, let's say, is to provide new forms of cloud and analytics and so on to really identify creative value. And so we started with a model based on data, where we collect a lot of cues from creators about their appreciation, let's say, of other creators. So we have this mobile app where you can vote by pressing your screen. It's called New Life, and you just press your screen based on how much you like what you see, and you can give feedback. And we have this AI that can basically unpack what's inside the content, and you can select what you like and things like that. And we are now moving to this new phase where we are incorporating three key concepts: DAO, DeFi, and NFT, in order to bring money into the game. So people won't speak only about their opinion by pressing their screen, but they will actually apply tokens to that. So that's kind of what we are doing. We are trying to be as much chain agnostic as possible, because when you have a social network, obviously it's a business of network, and you have to make sure that anyone can access as fast as possible. So we started with blockchains like Ethereum, then we tried things with IOTA, then EOS.io. Now we are looking at Polkadot, Solana, Celo, and all those chains. Our main criteria, let's say, is scalability. So Solana, for that reason, is extremely interesting for us. We believe that the next phase of crypto is about doing things that are beyond DeFi. DeFi is the only thing you can do if you have $5 per transaction. But we believe that for Web3 to emerge, we definitely need faster blockchains with the least amount of trade-offs, obviously, because sometimes you have to sacrifice scalability, you have to sacrifice decentralization for scalability. And so we are very excited to see all those blockchains, such as Polkadot, Solana, and so on, who are actually offering real decentralization and scale. Just making sure, is it a talk or is it an interview? Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
okay.
It's like you have the time to speak. If you want me to guide you through it, then I'm happy to do that too. And
Okay.
you
Okay.
can
I
also
was
share.
listening.
You can also share screens. Yeah,
Okay.
and share
Awesome.
slides if you have any.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. So I will give you maybe a deep dive into the new coin protocol and what we have been building on the blockchain side.
Yeah, but also while you do that, it's super exciting for us also to learn about your story, as an entrepreneur and why you came up with this, all this thing. What made you actually want to go and then, change the system and then choose blockchain to do so? You were one of the early adopters, actually, so it's quite interesting for us as a community to learn from your story.
Sure, awesome. Yes, let's do that instead. So my background is in the creative space since the early 2000s. I've been involved in the ringtones industry when it was something, when you had to pay to customize your phone ringtones, and it was a startup that was doing at the same time mobile in 2002 and selling copyrights from big music majors to consumers. And it was also at the same time you had all those like peer-to-peer platforms, Casa and BitTorrent and like all those eDonkey, Emule, like all those peer-to-peer networks. And it has always been, a challenge to figure out ways for creators to monetize, because before it was, very simple. You had big corporations that would provide all these like bureaucratic work of making contracts, licensing agreements, distribution deals, and so on. And as a creator, you would just sign a contract with the devil. They would take 90% of your revenue, and they would take care of everything, and you could just focus on creating. And then with the internet, suddenly creativity became this thing that anyone could have access to. It opened a lot of opportunities to everyone in the world, but the monetization didn't really follow. And since then, it has been a struggle to figure out ways to split revenue and to find economic models. Also because consumers and audiences don't really like to pay for content, except for some categories such as education and so on. In general, people expect that everything would be free plus ads. And so a lot of models have emerged, such as Google AdSense or YouTube partners, these kind of models where you can receive a cut on advertising fees. Then you have the paid subscription model, which is currently, I would say, the dominant one, which has been applied by companies like Spotify and Patreon and so on. And so when I saw the internet of value coming, I found it extremely interesting because it goes at a much lower level of the financial system, in the sense that by the time money is created, there is already a lot of value that has been taken away by all kinds of institutions that stretch, dilute, put some interest on it, and so on. So when you receive when you receive fiat currency, actually, there is a huge minus that has been taken away. And that's the part that people don't really see. I think now people are starting to understand that with the rise of inflation around the world and the supply that is in crisis right now. People start to understand that you cannot just like print your way into wealth, and that there is a consequence to finance, to currency being inflated. But yeah, so the idea is, how do we fix the problem that people who produce that currency are usually very rational people who are more from the finance sector or good with numbers, but they usually don't have this sensitivity. They don't really know people who are good creators. So what happens is that you end up with a creative economy that is dominated mostly by big numbers. So if you look at again, YouTube, Instagram, all those platforms, if you are on YouTube and you create an amazing design that could be worth billions of dollars, if you had to sell it in a fashion collection, you might have, and if you look at people who work actually at those brands, like people who work in the top luxury brands in the world, they are not famous. Their work, their intellectual property, the fruit of their brain is actually producing a lot of cash, but if they had to create an Instagram account, they would have 200 followers. And on the other side, you have people who have built a discipline called being an influencer. And this is currently what we call the creative economy. So most of the creative economy is a repackaging of the attention economy, where people try to grab attention either by doing controversies or by creating, very, let's say, a clickbait content. And they are the ones who are currently identified as the influencers. Instagram and TikTok are also taking this direction because their model is advertising based. So with the internet of value, we can imagine so many more models. The ones that we are very interested in at New Life is obviously our NFTs. The challenge with NFT is that the price is a bit arbitrary and it can be easily manipulated because it just requires the consensus between two participants. So those two participants could agree that something is going to have a value of $10 million when actually they're just moving money around. When you look at things like fashion trends, for example, and consensus among bigger communities of people, you get closer to the truth because it's more difficult for 20,000 people to say that something has value, and so or to fake that value. So we are looking at mechanisms around consensus between vast communities. We have done so through data, and another approach is social tokens, which is also very interesting. So yeah, that's the main reason why we got into this space. We believe that the Internet of Value is going to be a vacuum for creators to come and find new models and imagine new models. So what we can see is that there is creativity in the models themselves. There is innovation happening every month. You see a new economic model around how to monetize. And it's just a matter of time for this new way to monetize creativity to replace the old model. And it's quite interesting to see this concept of Web 3.0, where you have two visions of Web 3.0. The first one is this idea of now we have all the data, we can produce AI that can customize completely the experiences. So for example, TikTok, you just download the app, and based on your behavior, the app will adapt and give you extremely relevant content without the need to actually actively follow and so on. So that's one vision. We accumulate data, we have more data about people, and we can run fully automated applications that are extremely targeted. And then you have the second vision for Web3, which is now actually the platform should be owned by the users, and it should be owned by the people who, and so the assets, the data, the content, and so on should be owned by the users who produce them. And so I do believe that, and what we are very interested in with New Life is how we can make them work together, because the standard and the expectation that people have today for their app experience is pretty high. You cannot afford to have an NFT platform where you have 10 million content and you have to just go through the most recent ones or the ones that have been hyped by some market makers. You have to be able to tailor the experience because that's the standard that people expect nowadays. And so we have to figure out how to reconcile this with decentralization, because by definition, blockchains are very reliable. And if you put a lot of reliability and decentralization, you cannot really add algorithms because algorithms are energy intensive. So the way we look at it is a composable layered architecture, where the first layer is blockchain based. That's where people will upload their content. That's where the economic models that require transparency will operate. So if you buy content, if you buy a license, if you buy an asset, it will happen on the blockchain. And then when it comes to producing valuable experiences, we believe in, let's say, choice, free market, economic choice-based model, where the users control their assets, they control their data and so on. But then you have many application developers who will provide different layers on how to consume that data. So if you're an app developer, basically you don't need to create a user base. You can just pull the data from the blockchain and create your app. And then for the user, they will be able to choose which algorithm they want to use. So today, if you look at all those social giants, you are kind of trapped because there is network effect. And once you are inside, you cannot choose another algorithm. It's all like controlled by the platform. You cannot choose the UI. So you are the passive recipient of the platform decisions. You wake up one day and Instagram changed today, or TikTok, or and you just have to accept it. And the algorithm also can change. Business have been completely disrupted by that. There was this story of a business that was selling shoes for Bigfoot people, and they were number one on Google for that keyword. They were driving $20 million in revenue. They had employees and so on. And one day they woke up and the link was gone, and they were in the 5th page of Google, and the whole business collapsed. So this lack of reliability of centralized network, I think, is a big challenge. And so by making it layered and composable, we have a stable foundation, which is the blockchain part. And then people can move from one app to another. They can use different UIs, different algorithms, and the ones that are the most, let's say, because the users have the ability to escape, then the people who will develop such products will have to think about how to keep them. Again, if you look at all those centralized platforms, the reason why they can afford to do changes that are unpopular is because people are trapped. They cannot say, oh, I don't like the new algorithm from that platform. I have to accept it because that's the only way I can keep communicating with all my followers, my family, and my friends, and so on. So yeah, the foundation blockchain, all the AI and UIs completely interchangeable and free market based, and people having the ability to have their own content policies. So for example, if you don't want to see, if you want to make an app that's just for kids, for example, you might have a filter that completely bans anything that is not for kids. If you want to create an app that is for a specific political party, let's say, and you want to have only content that speaks with that kind of ideas, you can decide to filter it out. And if as a user you want to see diversity, you will choose an app that provides diversity. And all this ecosystem basically will make sure that as a user, you will always keep ownership of your content, and you will always benefit from the network effect without having to be subject to one specific platform policy.
You've been in the market for quite a while, right? Do you want to share with us what has happened in the recent year? How has the ecosystem changed? And then how did you pivot your own business model, and now you're even coming with the new coin? So I think it's quite interesting for us to learn.
Sure. So at the beginning, blockchain was mostly used for currencies. So you had this like phase one where it was Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin, all those like crypto assets that were fungible and that were based on this. They were copies of Bitcoin, basically. So everyone was trying their own version of Bitcoin. And then Ethereum arrived, and they introduced this idea that, oh, well, now you can actually use smart contracts that can enable all kinds of action to benefit from the same properties as Bitcoin. Because the main value of Bitcoin is the fact that it's a database that is not controlled by one entity. And so this property moved from being just for one currency to actually doing anything that requires that kind of property. So for example, when you sell a house, you want to make sure that the transaction is recorded and that your name is going to be written there, and that unless you sign a transaction with your private key, you stay the owner and nobody can change it. And this has never been done before. So Ethereum came in, and because of this new unprecedented capability that was provided by the internet, a lot of developers came and tried to invent new things, and new concepts emerged. One of them is the token. So this idea that you could actually replicate virtual currencies without having to launch a new network. So before, Litecoin, Bitcoin, and so on, there were always new networks. Ethereum is one network where you can have multiple tokens, and then progressively new models emerged that kind of became the standard that were tailoring what happened in the last 2 years, which are the concept of DAO. decentralized autonomous corporation or organization where you have communities who can vote for decisions like in Congress or like in a corporate board, but they could just buy some of the tokens of that project and participate in the decision process. So this is one model that is now taking off and that is becoming one of the key components of the blockchain ecosystem. The second one is decentralized finance. So this idea that now that you can trust something or that you can afford to not have to trust a software, you can run very big transactions and lend money to people and invest or buy or sell some financial derivatives and things like that. And so this is a model that took off and that formed a network effect in terms of adoption, because people who use DeFi, once they understood it with one platform, they can easily move to other platforms without having to relearn everything. And it's kind of, each platform has a little difference with the others, but they are kind of all according to the same principles. And the third model is NFT, which is very similar to the art market, where people understand that when something is scarce, you can buy it and then make a collection out of it and then maybe resell it. And so those three main models are, in my opinion, sharing the same component, which is the network, the social network component. Because if you think about it, an NFT platform is a social network where each content has a price instead of an amount of likes. A DeFi protocol is a social network where instead of likes, people are trading financial assets. And a DAO is a social network where decisions are made based on this heavy skin in the game called the coin. So if you own a lot of coins of something, you really care about this thing doing well, and so you will try to give the best decision or the best weight into this decision process. And so when you look at those three core models, we are looking at a new way to build social networks that combine at the same time the ownership of assets, the trust and the ability to perform financial models, and the ability to decide together. And this, in my opinion, is the next big thing in crypto. I think that in the next wave or the next cycle, people talk a lot about cycles in crypto. You will see a lot of models that kind of combine those use cases, and that's where we are heading with the new coin protocol, which is this underlying blockchain that will provide those capabilities and allow people to build apps without having to get too deep into the blockchain. So anyone could come and create a social network that inherit from all those properties.
How far are you? When can we expect the new coin to come?
So we are currently in a test net, meaning that we are playing around with a private version of the test net, which means all the tokens are fake. It's all like simulation, let's say, like playing Monopoly. Then we'll have a public test net around 25th of November. And then we expect to launch when we are done with the fundraising, because we want to make sure that we have the best start in terms of issuing the token into markets. It's always challenging because if you are small at the beginning, you are vulnerable to market manipulation, and we are making sure that before we get listed on exchanges, we have a solid community that will basically interact in a genuine way with our assets, as opposed to starting and having this like big spike and then fall. So the issuance of the token depends on that, on how good we are at forming a community. So we will start the communication campaign around mid October, November, sorry. Yeah, and so then if we can go viral and everyone comes and adopts the testnet, we might accelerate the launch.
Yay. There's also two team members here from you, right? Madeline and Natalia, who are here. Maybe you guys just say hello so people can see the team and see some faces. I don't know if you have your cameras on. Can see. I can see the ladies. Well, anyone has any questions to Sophia? You can write them in the chat. I'll read them out. And if not, oh, we just hear it's very inspirational. We have a lot of creatives in the unit community, so this is why, I think your project is really cool and interesting to our community too. Maybe give us a 1 minute wrap up of the key takeaways of looking at Web 3.0 and the creative industries. Oh, just 1 second, Sophie, and I'm super sorry you were mute and then
Thank you.
couldn't unmute.
Yeah, so the key takeaways are, we believe that the crypto until now has been more like an underground phenomena that was, made for, passionate thinkers and people who were the pioneers. And Web 3.0 is about moving from decentralized finance with very high, cost per transaction to more scalable blockchains where the scalability and the price per transaction will make it possible to build mass adoption or products and applications that can have a lot of traffic. And so the creative economy is in need for such solution because the advertising revenue is not enough to compensate creator. And if it was, it means so much consumerism and so much, plastic products being bought for creators to live that it cannot work this way. So we believe that those new economic models will enable more genuine interactions between creators and their audiences. And so the next iteration, we believe, is what we call social 3.0, which is the combination of those three components: ownership by the DAO, each content is an NFT, and each profile is a DeFi staking pool where people can not only invest their likes and their follows, but they can also invest tokens and share the success with the creators they believe in. And so this is a future that, in my opinion, is going to come around 2024. And so we are currently in the phase of building this next big wave, which in my opinion will be potentially 100 times bigger than what we have seen so far.
Well, it's an exciting future. I feel grateful that you're with us and that we're all together building the token economy. It's really cool. Thanks for being with us. Sofiane, I think your team has left connection details in the chat. So everyone, please join their chat channels. And we have the next speaker with us already, who is from Solana Beach, which is really cool product. So thanks, Sofiane. I give the stage, the mic to Rob.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Gil, for having me.
Bye.